a knetch of Torah, a dibur of Torah. But there's more to this. Chaim Shmulevitz used to say, mention about Agraisa Toyis. People make a mistake. They think, there are some people that are born with Ahavas Hatorah, but me, I don't have it. It's not my fault. What do you want from me? Zoktim Chaim, nobody is born with Ahavas Hatorah. And I guess he means to say, Ahavas Hatorah, like every other davar ruchni, is a product of Yigiyah. There's no free rides in ruchnius. But I want to add, so how is a person koine Ahavas Hatorah? We look at someone, we always have someone in our minds, he's a mustav Ahavas Hatorah. He just never satisfied, he wants more and more, and he goes on hours. I wish I could have somewhat of that. Is there a vitamin? Is there an exercise? I'll tell you, there's no vitamin, but there is an exercise. Because human nature is that Adam nifol kefi pulois, like the Chinuch writes. Or like the Zisharim writes, Chitzonis mi oira pnimius. When someone gives for something, that develops. In fact, the shirish of the word ahav is hav. Do you ever wonder why parents love children so much more than children love parents? The child's always receiving from the parents, he should love parents more. But adarabah, because the parents are giving and giving and giving, there's so much hav, that creates an ahava. The secret of Ahavas Hatorah is giving for Torah. When it's not so gishmak, when it's not so easy. And Re'ez Pella, the Chinuch, who was mechadish this yisoid of Adam Nifl Gefi of a mitzvah tezayin, he gives a mashal. He gives a mashal of how guaranteed and proven it is Adam Nifl. And I quote his lashon: Afil Rosh Gama im yer rucha v'yasam ishtadlusay v'iskay b'asmoda b'toira miyad yinot el hatoiv uvechoyach ma'asav eventually yamas hayetzahara ki achrei ha'pu'ulais nimshachas halavavos. Of all the examples of Adam Nifal, the Goyen chose a marshal where a Rosh Gama could turn into a Masmid. Because Hav brings a Hava. And Pa'ulas could bring even from a Rosh Gama into an Oyev Torah. And how about someone that is an Oyev Torah but he wants a little more? But that's the way the Baruch made the world. There's a famous lashon of Gemara and Yuma. The Ahavas Hatorah says that even Klara. There are 3 ksarim: Keser Malchus, Keser Torah. You give all the money in the world, it's not going to get you anywhere. Zok to Ahavas Hatorah, but Keser Torah ain't a kain. All Keser Torah is a mola shel Torah. Kol haroitza litol, yovev v'yitol. You have to be a yichus to become a melech. You have to have yichus to become a kohen. But what's the yichus for Ahavas Hatorah? The way the Rambam paskins based on this, Aval Keser Torah harei munach v'oimid umuchon lachol shenem Torah tziva lo Moshe Marasha Kilas Yaakov. There is no one that's denied of this sheinkite called Ahavas Hatorah. But there has to be kol haroitza litol. A person worries sometimes, and maybe it's an innocent mistake. I would love to have Ahavas Hatorah, but look at me. I sit down, it doesn't go. He doesn't realize that it's not a gzeirah. That's an opportunity. That's an opportunity to turn Hav into a Hava. The Brisker Rav once said a zog, and I quote, Havos lantminit, v'imo lantnit. Typical Brisker Rav. But I think there's so much practicality. A person, Havos lantminit, taka. Torah is so mesukim yivash v'noivs. Why don't people learn more and more? Teretz says it's understandable. They sit down, it goes a few minutes, and they can't go on. So what do? Close the Gemara, I'll come back tomorrow. But nothing's going to change. If you don't make work on making a kinyan of ahava, if you don't give, if there's no hav, there's no ahava. So every time it's difficult, the Baruch is giving you an opportunity, the exercise for Ahavas Hatorah, and what does he do? I'll come back tomorrow. Favos lantminit, I'm a lantnit. That's it. You close the Gemara, or you don't make an extra effort to go to make another Seder because, okay, so I'll go with the flow. The Baruch Hashem is giving you a kinyan. Avos lernit, v'ama lernit. Yachshiv Adam b'shivcha shel Torah. The Mishnah says in Ahavas, V'dal lifnei mi ata omel. That should be enough of a chizik that a person is able to extend himself. So the Chaim Volozhin in Ruach Chaim, Ratzoloi me b'fonav mamish, ki hu ba'atzmoi, the Baruch Hashem himself, kaviyachol, oimid alecha. The Baruch Hashem is standing by your learning and kvelling. Ki ein le'kadosh baruch hu ba'ilomai al dalar amish halacha bilvad, like Mor says in Brachos Chaf Chesed Amud Aleph. V'dai b'zeh leheyer oizen b'limudem, ki Hashem tzvah my learning and your learning is the same. You know, you might wonder why I say this, but the Gemara says it. What does the Baruch Hashem have from this world? All the tsaros and all the averis. And then when you see a yid that is extending himself to learn, that's ein lakadosh baruch hu ba'ilomai al dalar amish halacha bilvad. Look at Nefesh Chaim, Shar Dalet, Perek Lamed Dalet. He said, the Baruch Hashem kaviyachol, but this is what he says, the Baruch Hashem's in terrible agony because of Churban. But when someone learns Torah, that's in a small scale, ein shiur raka Torah hazois. Imagine you have a very devoted son, and he wants to give his parents a special nachas. So he has an idea. It's Motzah Pesach, and his parents went to a Nil Sachag. He's going to daven the early Zmayv. He's going to run home and wash all the dishes. You know, for parents, it's a big treat. Come home, rimple nacht, everything is done. And he's washing, and every dish, every bit of effort, he feels like $1 million. He's giving his parents nachas. But all of a sudden he hears the door open, and his parents come in. And they're shocked. They're frozen in their tracks. And they're watching him. I'm a kind of his feeling. Not only he's doing something for his parents, but they're watching and they're kvelling. That's dal lifnei mi ata omel. The Bari Olam is watching us, and maybe that's the hemshach. The Mishnah first is mechayavas havishakud lilmay Torah. How? Dal lifnei mi ata omel. Yes, little old me, ani avdcha ben amasecha, but my Torah is giving the Baruch Hashem a nachas that's in a certain sense comparable to the Binyan Beis Hamikdash. That's part of the Shivcha Shel Torah. I once saw a transcript of the famous story of the Dibuk. You know, Kedu Rabbi Yakov Zev sent Rabbi Chanan and some of his sons to extricate a Dibuk, and Rabbi Chanan's son wrote exactly what happened. He was there together with his father. See who the Leib's name was, and he wrote exactly the story. It's marvelous. You see him, you know, you see the koyach of Torah. One part I want to tell you about, when Rabbi Chanan finally started talking with the Dibuk, he asked, and this again, the Lashon of, he writes about Avi Moiri Shlita, Rabbi Chanan Shlita. Iveis Chafetz Chaim? He wanted to know if the Dibuk will listen. So he goes, yeah, Meveisin as a grace Tanan in Shemayim. Favos, Tzlub Zayin Asmoda. I think if I would ask you, what was the greatness of the Chafetz Chaim in Shemayim? It's felt nicht nice. I mean, there's so much. His Sitkis, his Shmiras Haloshin, his Svarim. But Ein LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'ilomai Al Dalar Amis, the Chafetz Chaim was a Tan in Shemayim because of the Heilig Asmoda. But it's not only the Chafetz Chaim. We don't compare to the Chafetz Chaim. But Torah never changes. And if we would live with that reality, L'olam yachshiv adam b'shivcha shel Torah. It's everything. The difficulty is a small price to pay. The kvisitim la Torah, the ganvning site for Torah, but it's all the same. It's just a small price to pay for zah grace of Torah. Because that's all we have to do. We have to try our hardest. It's interesting, the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Aleph, which is obviously in Hagdama, to ganz Dal Chelke Shulchan Aruch. Siman Aleph Sif Katan Yud Beis, sagt Mishnah Berurah, Echad HaMarba, Echad HaMamit, v'chein l'inyan Talmud Torah. Ha'inyan b'kol zeh, ha'inyan kein, Ki hakol tolui lifnei Hashem Yisbarach asher oisa kol asher b'koichoi lasois. We're not expected to be Reb Chaim Kanievsky, but to be ourselves. Reb Pam once told us, he heard from Rav Henkin. Rav Henkin was once called to one of the Rabbanim in Europe, the Stupitzer Rav. And the Rav wanted to speak to Rav Henkin. So he's waiting in the waiting room, and another young man was sitting there. So Rav Henkin asked him, Vi heist Ayid? Says, Zecheis Avram Mishaya Karelitz. Okay, the first 50 years of his life, Chazon Ish lived as an Ista. Okay, never heard of him. He goes, Vos tut Ayid? What do you do? So I have a store. He had a store like I have a store. His wife had a store. Okay, good. Junger Mann, he asked Chazon Ish, Is Eid Kaveit Latoyres? He learned a bissel? So the Chazon Ish said these words, Wenn ze dort seid, lernt man. And made a rosh. Rav Henkin said, I don't know who this young man is, but it's all good. After he went into the Rav, he found out that this younger man's Wenn ze dort seid, God happens to be 16 hours a day. But the Pam was a spoil, as Rav Henkin was, that's exactly the Chiyuv of Talmud Torah. For a Chazon Ish, it's 16 hours a day. For a working person, well, it depends how much he has to work, how much gesund he has, and how busy he is, and children, and parents, and all the variables, and all the various factors. But everybody's mission and Tzedot Zeitlandman. Because Keser Torah, Kol HaRoitze Lito, no one's denied. But this beginning has to be to see the Dvar Hashem. Everybody knows the story of Hillel in Yumel Amhei, Mesiras Nefesh. He climbed on the roof. You know why Hillel was able to do that? Look at Lashon Gemara. Nitla v'yashiv al pi aruba k'dei sheyishma divrei Elikim Chayim. When someone sees the Dvar Hashem, the divrei Elikim Chayim, and the Dvar Torah, then nothing is too hard. We could go on. But the nitzchias of Torah in the Yiddish hearts is all about understanding that it's never too hard if we appreciate Torah. And then I understood that's pshat in the Gemara in Chagiga. Imagine a parent asks the child, take out the garbage. Oh, yeah, I can't. You can't? Why not? So the boy feels guilty. He says, okay, I'll do it. But the parent feels violated. How do you say, I can't? What do you mean you can't? That's pshat in the Gemara. Does not mean he can't do it. If he can't do it, he can't do it. But he says, I can't do it. It's hard. I'm working. I'm busy. Whatever the endless tishari terutzim shaloi ninalu. But then he goes to learn because yidaf learning, and that makes the Rambam cry. How are you going to survive in Golus if you don't know your greatest strength is there is no efsha? There's an Amat Torah that rebuilt Torah after the greatest Churban when the Welt said Kaddish on Limud HaTorah. Because it's never the efsha if you really want to make it. But I think there's more to this. I once speaking to an Elach Yid who was not looking for excuses, and he had a very big difficulty. I told him, I'm going to tell you about Abal Moifis. Everybody likes to hear about Abal Moifis, but Abal Moifis that you know as good as I do about. And that's called the Moifis of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan, Kayedu, was a Talmud Rabbeinu HaKadosh. History, he was a Rashiv for 80 years. That, Rabbi Yisai, is the biggest Moifis. Think about the life of Rabbi Yochanan. From day one, in Kedushin Daf Lamed Aleph, he was born without parents. His father died when his mother was expecting him. His mother died in childbirth. And Rabbi Yochanan was able to say, Ashrei Misha Leichaman, fortunate someone that has no parents. So from day one, he was born a real Yosem. Okay, then he married and had a family. So in Brachas Daf Hey, he buried all his 10 children in his lifetime. Chazal talk about losing one child. There is a special word for that. He went through 10 kfuras of his own children. He didn't have lechem lecha. So you think more in Tainis Daf Chav Aleph. Il for Rabbi Yochanan Habigarsi, the Chikle Milsa Tuva. They had nothing what to eat. But it's worse than that. You learn the Medrash in Shir Ashir and Perek Ches Oy Zayin. Rabbi Yochanan was once walking with his Talmud Reb Chia. And Every so often he said, oh, you see, that estate, that used to be mine, but I sold it because I wanted to learn. Oh, that wine press, that's mine, I sold it. Oh, that olive press, that was mine. And as they're walking, suddenly it becomes quiet. And Rabbi Yochanan looks at him, he is crying. He says, why are you crying? He says, what do you mean? I thought the Rebbe was an Ani Ve'evya. No, okay. But I see the Rebbe was a Gevir Adir, and he gave it all up for Torah. So Rabbi Yochanan says, I gave it all up for Torah? I got Torah that was given by Borei Olam. Zok the Medrash. Rabbi Yochanan couldn't understand. How do you say I gave it all up? Tyre Yidden, how does a person live without parents, without children, without panasa? But if he was an Ani Ve'evya, he was a Yared. He was a Yared b'nechasav. You know what the secret is? I'll tell you the end of that medrash. Kadamar Rabbi Yochanan hayadoyer kair alav im yitein ish es kolaim beisai bi'ahava she'ahavas hatorah bois yavuzulai. It's those 4 words that's the strongest koyach on planet Earth. And that's bi'ahava she'ahavas hatorah. And then a person could be a moifus like Rabbi Yochanan, not having children and not having parents and not having panasa. But he has kiyem chayenu. You know, Baruch Bey, when he came to America, he would go from shul to shul every Shabbos in a different shul and make an appeal. So typically the Rav would varnam the oilam, he would talk a little bit about Torah, and there Baruch Bey would speak. One Shabbos the Rav got up and it was very, very emotional, very, very passionate, that Torah is like oxygen. When a Yiddish mensch, a Yiddish folk, kenish Lebanon on oxygen, and we can't live without Torah. And it was going on and on about you can't live without Torah, without oxygen. Baruch Hu was listening, and then he said, then he asked Baruch Hu to speak. So Baruch Hu got up and said, "Ich weiß nicht, was das meint oxygen." You don't know English? Aber eine Sache weiß ich, a Torah nicht oxygen. Now listen to Baruch Hu as a chap. How do you know if you don't know? Well, the Rebbe Miguel Chaim taught me, a Torah is Leben allein. Der Rav hat gesagt, wir können nicht leben on Torah wie on oxygen. Das heißt, da 2 Dinim. So da Leben und so da Torah. That's not true. Maybe there's 2 Dinim, living and oxygen. Oh, but Torah is Leben allein. You see, Rabbi Yochanan was able to live without children and parents and money because he had Leben allein. But you know what's mavaldik? What was able to stop this unstoppable Malach Elikim called Rabbi Yochanan? Not losing children, not losing parents, not losing his money. You all know the Gemara. But Metzia, Pei Dalid, when Resh Lakish, his beloved Chavrusa, was nifta, he couldn't go on. So he got in the best Chavrusa. He goes, no, I know the Pshat. But I need the Yagiyah, I need the Amelis, I need the Haravanya, I need the Matring and the Mutching and the plugging. You give me a Chavrusa that agrees to me. And Rachmana litzlan, he was nifta from Agmas Nefesh. You see, a person could live Rachmana litzlan without children and parents and money, but he can't live without life itself. And maybe if you want, we could even find the words of Rabbi Yochanan. He told us his secret. The Moif is Rabbi Yochanan. Sagt ihm in Brachas Yud Zayin, Rabbi Yochanan kav Messiahim Sifra de Iyov. When Rabbi Yochanan finished, and Pashup Shabbos, he finished the Sefer Iyov. So will sich sagen, Rabbi Yochanan's life was one big Sifra de Iyov. When he finished, when he went through his life, it was one shtik Iyov. Omahachi. What's the secret? How do I make it? Ashe misha gadol b'Torah, v'amoli b'Torah, v'yisanachas ruch liyotzrei. When someone understands the oimik of Ashe misha amoli b'Torah, then nothing is too hard. And this is the moifus called Rabbi Yochanan. Ahavas Hatorah. It's interesting, the Ramban wrote an Hakdama, a short Hakdama ala Torah. Actually, it's 2 Hakdamas, but in the short one he writes as he seems to be feel guilty. Wie komm ich zu schreiben a pirish on Chol Torah Kula? So he writes, you're right, it's a kasha. Aber ma essa, v'nafshi choshke b'Torah, V'hu belibi ke'esh oicheles boyera. That's based on a pasuk in Yirmiyah. Look the way he touched up Torah. Eish oicheles boyera. A burning fire that burns up all terutzim and all excuses. Uboyera that's so illuminating and has such a lichtigkeit, such gehoibenkeit. That's the koyach of Ahavas Hatorah. The eish oicheles boyera burns up and mevatel all the narish excuses. Now, they once asked Nosson Tzvi Finkel, it was probably the muster of Yisurim in our door. How do you learn constantly mitoich Yisurim? So without skipping a beat, he said, I don't learn mitoich Yisurim, I learn mitoich Simcha. See, that's the eish oicheles boyera of Ahavas Hatorah. I wants to, maybe that's Taka the Pshat. The Gemara says in Brachas Daf Hey, Kol Oisik b'Torah, Yisurim b'Deilim himenu, Shanem and Mar brings a pasuk. So it sounds like it's saying if you learn Torah, you don't have Yisurim, but it's not true. Because the Mitzvah is Eis Asher Yev Hashem Yechiach. And we know Gedolei Olam throughout the Doros had Yisurim. But maybe the Pshat is Yisurim b'Deilim himenu means from Mitoich Yisurim it becomes Mitoich Simcha. And it's an opportunity of Hav that brings more Ahava. The Chazon Ish was very much mechabed, a younger man that davened in his home, his minyan at home, who was unknown to most. So someone asked him, why is it getting so much cover, the younger man? He said these words, "Sein Name is Shmuel Rozovsky, and one day he's going to be the biggest Rosh Hashiva, because he learns B'Torch Simcha." That was the Chazon Ish's Niba v'Yodam an Niba. But I want to add another postscript which the Chazon Ish was not zoicha to see b'chayav. But Reb Shmuel Nebuch was stricken with Yana Machla, and they tried all type of medicine and treatment. It didn't work, and even the morphine he became just immune to it. It didn't help him. So he went to a doctor. He says, I have too much sar. The doctor says, I can't give you morphine. It's not working. He says, okay, beseda. So the doctor said, what do you mean beseda? I have something better than morphine, he said. So the doctor said, I'm a doctor, tell me what you have. So I'm giving a share in Panovich about the Sug of Naya Marasa. That's going to help me. So the doctor says, Kvod Harav, I can't believe that. What is that supposed to mean? He said, why don't you come? And the doctor went to Panovich, and he heard that the strongest painkiller on this universe is Ahavas Hatorah. He saw and he heard, Ahavas Hatorah is an eish oicheles boyera. But I want to say something else. I think there's a mitzvah lefarsim for parents and rabbeim and mechanchim. I was zoicha to one of the greatest mabitzei Torah, Rav Vosner the Shevet Halevi. Besides that, he was a Rav and Rosh Yeshiva for probably 70 plus years. He wrote thousands of tshuvas and droshes and shiurim. But most of all, he was maimed hundreds, probably thousands of talmidim, hundreds of rabbonim were his talmidim. But I think his most important halacha l'mais, his most important tshuva, was the pella that was called Rav Vosner. Because we are convinced, what was Rav Vosner's life? Like the typical mold of godless, He was 7 years old, he finished Gans Tanakh. 12 years old, Gans Mishnayos. 18, Gans Shas, and lived happily ever after. That's what we think about godless is all about. Just change the name, but it's all the same. Let me tell you what Rav Vosner said himself. It's printed in his drushes. He said he didn't have a good head, in a Shracha Kishin. And so much so when he applied to Chachmi Lublin, he was refused. One of the Rebbeim there believed in him and intervened, give him a chance. So he was given 3 months trial period. But he said it was torture because no one wanted to learn with him. Imagine, he had no chavrusa. After 3 months, he was given a teischem l'shalom because it's not the place for us. Another Rebbe intervened and saved his life. And you think about it, this is a moifis. A shvacha cup, a failure, with giants, with aroyos of Chabura. So I found this secret in one of his drushes in Chelik Aleph, Amud Kuf Pei Gimel. Haderech lagia lasmoda V'smasris gemur l'Torah hi rak al yedei Ahavas Hatorah. Al talmidim lodash im britzoinam ligdol talmidei chachamim tzrichin beroish v'rishoina liknois Ahavas Hatorah. Before you kaina Masechta, you have to be kaina the ahava for the Masechta. It's really, after everything said, it defies explanation. Someone that had such difficulties, and don't forget, he came from a very simple home. He came from Vienna, that wasn't so much in favor of Limud HaTorah day and night. But he was living Ahavas Hatorah. He really believed Kol HaRoitz Alita goes to him as well. And I saw one beautiful halacha l'maisa, maybe a psak you want to call it. It was the day after his Enkel got married, and some Bachim was sleeping during the Shia. Understandably, because they stayed for the late Chasana, and they didn't sleep much, they were tired. So he said these words, and I quote, says, believe me, he says, I'm also tired. Because I was also by the Chasana. It's his Enkel. Oh, but the Ahavas Hatorah lost me nishlafen. He lived with this reality. The Ahavas Hatorah lost me nishlafen. Rav Wosner was the muster of Ahavas Hatorah because he was the muster of Hav. Why did he give of himself for Torah? He was a goyin in Torah because he was a goyin in Hav for Torah. The mold of godless is not when you're 7 and 12. The mold of godless, like the way he says it, is liknois Ahavas Hatorah. And then you have a yid that says efsha. Isn't that a tsar by Borei Olam? When a yid says efsha, he's going to be another victim of what the Briskirov says. Havos le'menish v'amolet nisht. If only he would see every difficulty as an opportunity to turn even a Rosh Hashanah into an Oyev Torah, to a Hav into a Hava. To make Yisurim B'Delim Himenu. It becomes a mile, not a chesaron. It's an opportunity, not a struggle. Think about Kamamailas Toivais in Ahavas Hatorah. There's more time to learn, there's more Gishmak in learning. But it's a kinyan, like everything else. The more we give, the more exercise there is, the more Ahava there is. And there's an interesting dialogue in the Avos in the Tanah de Eliyahu, Kayidua. Rav Onan, one of the Meroyim, met Eliyahu Hanavi, and whatever he heard from him, he quoted in Tanah de Eliyahu. So he writes there in Perek Yudalid, Rav Onan asked Eliyahu Hanavi, "Neimach havivin divrei Torah al Kadosh Baruch Hu yoysim mikol b'ay olam." Why does the Baruch have such a love for Torah? Tzvi, Hamoed, v'agig, la'oim, b'la'usam. So Eliyahu Hanavi answered, "Meshe divrei Torah machrin es Yisrael l'kav schus, u'mechanchen oisei l'mitzvus, u'mevian oisei l'chai olam haba." Who like Borei Olam knows vifel geit harayin in avodah Torah? Not just the schar of it, but the transformative effect of it. It makes a person a different person. It makes him an oyev Torah. It makes him a different sense of values. You know, the chinuch writes, by the mitzvah of Avas Hashem, you have to work in it. Asigeyu b'tachlus hatainuk. See, people make a mistake. Say, Yidden, we're not into taivas. We're very into taivas. But we want an emes taiv, not a fake imitation. We want a tachlus hatainik. We want the arevis, the adidas, the neimas, the mesikas of Torah. You know, it's interesting. The more in Chulin, Daf Kuf Lamed Gimel, so you're not allowed to teach a Talmud she'ein hagen Torah. Why? Shenema pasik loinava l'ksil tainug. It's inappropriate to give a ksil tainug. Gosh, wait a second. How do you see anything about Torah? Loinava l'ksil, okay, that's Talmud she'ein. But where does tainug have to do with anything? The teretz is in Chazal's eyes, there's one word that's synonymous with Torah, and that's tainug. And then a person could see all the narishkeit, the hevel avolim, and he spies it upon Harayim. I want real taivas. I want real tanugim. And that's really what's shot in the Gemara. Tchilas dina shel adam al divrei Torah. Avad is a world of masumatin. But when someone has the ashkafa right, when someone has the chshivas of Torah right, then nothing stops him. But one more point I want to tell you. Now, someone once approached me, and he said, I have to tell you this story, okay? I think you'll enjoy it. Okay. So tell me the following story. He got a phone call from someone in Eretz Yisrael, a business acquaintance of his, and the fellow was begging him. He said, listen, there was a very big deal that was about to be consummated, to be closed, and it fell apart. Right now, this deal has a tremendous potential for big money, but it's not going to make it for another 24 hours. If you come to Eretz Yisrael and you get involved, you can make that deal, and I guarantee you, it's going to be worth your while. But you have to get there within 24 hours. So he's a businessman, okay? So he quickly calls up his travel agent. Is it shaykh? Is it feasible? He goes, yeah, there's a flight. Get on the plane. So he says he jumped into a car service, and he was diving the whole way. He shouldn't be stuck in traffic. If he misses the flight, it's all over. He gets to the airport in no time. The person here is tefillis. He's waiting in line to check in. So the clerk says, okay, sir, next, okay. Where's your passport? And he chaps, he doesn't usually do this. He's got to bring his passport. So he starts stammering and stuttering. I have to go. Sir, where's your passport? He goes, he says, you don't understand this. I have to get to Israel. Sir, where's your passport? So he goes, do I look like a terrorist to you? So the person says, sir, without your passport, you're not going anywhere. So he realized, so he turned around and he went home. And I heard that story. He says, that's a Gemara in 4 places in Shas. That's the Rav Shulchan Aruch's psak that we have to live with. And maybe that's the Gemara in Sanhedrin of Tchilas Dinei Shel Adam Al Divrei Soira. The Rav in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perik Aleph Halacha Dalid, writes that every person has a mission in life to complete his chelik in Torah. Now, of course, it's extremely subjective because everybody is different. Some people have more time, more health, less health. But kol zeh every person has a tachas to finish his chelik in Torah. And he writes, Chas Chalil, if he doesn't finish his chelik in Torah, he has to come back to this world as a Gilgul, which is the worst einish. And then he says a Davar Nifla. That's the shot in the Gemara. God, it's in 4 places in Shas. It's in Bava Basra, Pesachim, by Kotnik Subis. Ashrei Misha Bo Lekan B'Talmudei B'Yodoi. Do you see? Our chelik in Torah is our passport to Vienna Welt. And without a passport, we're not going anywhere. And it's interesting, the Gemara in Ksubas Ayin Zayin Amud Beis, one of the places, marveled at how they live with this. Reb Chanina Bar Papa, his time came to leave this world. So he begged the Malach HaMaves, give me 30 days, I want to chazer one more time. It's like Avigdor Miller, Zechariah Levrach, he would go to a chasana, stay a few minutes and go home. So once Eni goes, Zaidi, why are you always rushing? Why are you coming and going? Why are you so busy? He says, I'm studying for a big faher. So Eni goes, Zaidi, you have a faher in your stage of life? He goes, yeah. It's Asher Misha Bola Kamba Talmudei B'Yodei. The Chavos Chaim and Bialocha makes a point of quoting this medrash. And he says, when saying Arab people, the Merapi from Torah, they don't realize that there's a tachlis, and 3 times a day, we're reminded of that. We say, V'sein chalkeinu b'soirasecha, chayvosai b'olamai, Talmudei B'Yodei. It's very subjective. There's a beautiful concept. People say, I have my Olam Haba Masechta, which is wonderful. Your Masechta, you really know, but it's misleading. Because every Var Torah is Olam Habadik. Every Var Torah is Nitzchias. And that's Tchilas Dinei Shel Adam Al Divrei Soira. They say Moshe Landinsky was the Rashiva at Ahavas Chaim's Yeshiva in Radin. He once was traveling, and he was very fatifed in a sugya, and he had to see the Lashon of Rashi in one of the Masechtas. But you're going with a horse and buggy. So the next Kretschmer we're going to see, the next inn we're going to see, we're going to go, maybe he has the Gemara. There was a small chance. People didn't have shasin in those days, especially a simple innkeeper. So they stopped and he went and he said, do me a favor, would you have this Masechta? He goes, I only have one Masechta. I don't know what it is. Let me check. And sure enough, it was that Masechta. How much he felt like a Yom Tov Tik. He looked up to Rashi and he kept on going. So he came back to Ran, he told the Chafetz Chaim that, Mamash HaMoifis, I wanted to upshot in the Rashi, the words of Rashi. I asked this Kretschmer and Baruch Shem, he had it. Like he wanted to show the Chafetz Chaim how the whole world stellt to his learning. Chafetz Chaim says, Rav Moshe, in Yenevelt is doch kein Kretschmers. You can't look it up in Yenevelt. That's Talmud B'yodai. But Avada, everybody's busy. And don't forget, that's life. It's interesting that the Chinuch wrote a sefer, very bekitza, of the Tzuras HaMitzvah. If you look at the mitzvah of Tov Yud Tes, the mitzvah of Limud HaTorah, after he said a little bit about the mitzvah, he goes, look, a ganze Musa Shmuz. Umash amu chachamim, in Ahavas. Lo yoyim adam efne esh Hashem olay tipane, ki lo yeda adam ayelad yoyim. She'iske shel adam mischadesh yoyim yoyim, umadich has adam midava ledava, umitirda letirda, v'nimtzu kol yamav yoyitzim bevahala. Im lo yitein pnayal kapanim v'yitchoik atzmai le'iske shel Torah. And I once added, this is not a Musa Shmuz. This is the Chefetz of Torah. There's a world of Talmud Torah keneged Kulam, but then there's a world of Kulam keneged Talmud Torah. Because Kol HaGodlam Yichaveroi, Yitzhak Godlei Menu goes on mitzvahs also. And if Talmud Torah is the biggest mitzvah, there's the biggest nisyonis. So the Chinuch is saying that Tzuras HaMitzvah is a person has to push himself. Because otherwise he's busy with the tirda and the dava, and he'll be another victim of us lamp. And if I'm a lantnisht, the only eitz is yitchoik atzmai. But the Bershom bleibt nicht schuldig. Because like the Chinuch concludes, if you do that, Messiah noisai umakilam yalav tirda so oilam hamavilais umavim menu ol oila shal briois b'shoichan b'simcha kol yamav b'oilam hazeh v'toivli b'oilam haba. And the emphasis to our eternal credit, we see today the extraordinary explosion of Limud HaTorah, Balabatim that devote hours a day to learn. They finally put this lemaisa. Panasahim, panasaher, I want to live. And Taki, you see, you have working people that are Bekiyim in Shas. Not just finishing Shas, but knowing Shas. Our door is singing a new niggin to the old words. Not the depressing of Rechaim al Savar v'Yasik b'Torah, but with great simcha and confidence, Rechaim al Savar v'Yasik b'Torah. How many people spend hours a day learning? Busy people. Have big money involved, but I make a living, but how I have to live. An Avada, that's our chiyuv. They say something when Chaim Kanievsky made a shidduch, one of his children, he told him, listen, I'm going to tell you right away, I can't come to all the Sheva Brachas because I'm a Baal Choiv. So the Chum said, fine, whatever you say is good. End of the conversation. Someone heard what happened. They went over to the Chum and said, what do you think Rabbi Chaim meant? He's a Baal Choiv. You think he owes money and at night he drives a taxi to make some money? What do you think he meant? I don't know, but I don't care. Let me tell you what he meant. He has a choiv, every day has to finish. He called chayuvim, chayvis, whatever you called it. And if he goes a chasana, so it's one day. And Sheva Brachas, another day. I'm a Baal choiv. That's what he meant, not that he owes money. But what's very important for us to hear? We're all Baal choiv. Not Reb Chaim's chiyuv, but our chiyuv. But the eitzah is to realize that there's a koyach of Ahavas Hatorah. Then nothing could stop that ahava. Because the same Rabbi Yishmael that said V'yasaf D'gonecha Masech Brachos is the one that said in the Medrash, Boirei Kamakashi Yom Adin, because there's a feher to see V'umahalten Torah. I want to tell you about another Baal Moifis. Again, I can't even begin to explain it. But what the Rambam was zoicha to, Ad Hayoim, Moshe ad Moshe come to Moshe. So we probably think, well, the Rambam sat probably a whole day and night on Mei Menucha, learning Torah. without a worry in the world. He wrote Svarim. I have in front of me a copy of a tshuva. It's reprinted now in Parador, Kuf Mem Gimel. Used to be in the Igros HaRambam. So it's something the Rambam B'Ksaviyat Kotchay. One of his Talmidim, Reb Shmuel Ibn Tibbon, wanted to translate one of the Rambam's work that he wrote in Arabic into Lashon Kodesh, which is a tremendous service for the Rambam and for Klal Yisrael. But he needed to sit down with the Rambam and just go through certain horrors that he had. So Rambam writes, and I quote, "Come, but don't come, because it's not going to help. I will not be able to give you a moment of my time." And he describes his daily Seder Hayoim. He says, you have to realize that I work for the king, the Arabic king, the Sultan. I live in Mitzrayim, he's in Cairo. And I have to treat his whole family and all the people in his palace. On a good day, he writes, I finish 2 hours into the afternoon. And I start to go home. He says, there's 2 Tchumei Shabbos to me and the king. When I finally get home after working a whole morning and part of the afternoon, and I'm starving, I'm almost fasting 24 hours, and I find the Achsadrois, Malayas, Bnei Adam, Goyim, V'Yehudim, Chashev, V'Bilti Chashev, Shaiftim, V'Shaichim, Oyevim, V'Soinim, Erev Rav Yodu as a Shuvi, and they're all waiting for me to treat them, because he was a doctor, don't forget. I get off my horse, I have to wash my hand, and I beg them, let me eat. I haven't eaten almost 24 hours. That's what he writes. Come out of Eis Leis. And I just sit there after I eat a little bit, and I treat people until he says it's 2 hours into the night. And he's Shoich of Parkadin. It's a big horror what he meant over here, but I'm laying. We roi va'yefois, v'ani betachlis ha'chushla, le'uchel adaba. Soiv davar le'yuchel echad mi'Yisrael adaba li, oy l'schabo, l'zboidid imi, zulas yoyim ha'Shabbos. But yoyim ha'Shabbos, he writes, I'm more busy than the whole week. Look it up in the Parador Siman Kuf Mem Gimel. When did he become the Rambam? I don't know. But that's Ahavas Hatorah. There was someone that the Paskin, Takeh, the Rambam, Hilchos Talmud Torah, Pergalaf Alochet, Kol Ish B'Yisrael, Chai B'Talmud Torah, Bein Ani, Bein Asher, Bein Shalom Megufay, Bal Yisurim, and interesting, the last thing he writes is, Afilu Bal Ishu Bonim. That's the most difficult. But this is the appella. He never had a moment to breathe. But he was living Ahavas Hatorah. Another shining example of how bringing Ahava in the most incredible way. Rashi in Parshas Yisro is often misquoted. Rashi says, Kol Chol is koshes, Mikan ve'elach yerev lachem. Actually, the lashon is V'kabu aleichem yerev lachem, Mikan ve'elach shekol Chol is koshes. So it seems like it's saying that you just start, and then it'll be easy sailing, smooth sailing. But it's not true. Kol godlem chayveri yitzgodlem menu. And as Gemara says in Brachas Lamed Beis, Torah is one of the things that tzrichen chizik tamid. It's not true. You learn a few days, and the rest of your life, everything is just downhill. What does Rashi mean? Not that it's yerev lachem. I once thought maybe that's the emes of Pshat. So, today in our world of business, person works, he gets a salary. He works overtime, so he gets extra. Double overtime, that's already double overtime for something very difficult. Now, even though it's so difficult, but Adrabah, the Matan Schar makes it worthwhile. Imagine if you would get not double overtime, 100 times overtime. That would be an offer you can't refuse. And that's the Rebbeinu Shalom's world. The Welt misquotes the Lashon, but you look in the Ahavas Hatorah in Perek Gimel, Ois Hey, Toiv Leila Adam, Dave Echad B'tzar, Mimeya Berevach. When it's not so gishmak and a person pushes himself, it's not double overtime. It's 100 times more valuable. But I think the biggest schar, more than the tischar, is the hav that brings the ahava. But the problem is we don't identify it properly. We see a difficulty, oh, it's not for me. I'll wait till tomorrow. When someone figures out what life's all about, that a difficult situation is an opportunity besides 100 times overtime, but to turn Hav into Ahava, it's not a Gzeira Ra, it's a Kinyan. It's not a Schwerkeit, it's an opportunity. That's what Rashi means. If you start and you realize Chol is kosher, because that's the Kinyan of Torah, Mikan ve'elach yerav lachem. It'll be zis for you. It'll be sweet for you, because you're getting the greatest prize, the greatest schar. You're getting the schar of limud haTorah, of Ahavas Hatorah. Yerav lachem does not mean it's going to be easy the rest of your life. It's going to be so worthwhile. And if there is a samach, if there is a medicine for the EFs, it's to realize the greatness of every Var Torah. Let me just be Messiah with a Ma'aseh I saw printed. It was Sunday after the Chazon Ish was nifta on Shabbos Tezvav. This is Tezayin Cheshvin, and Shteitzach, the world became very dark. The Chazon Ish was nifta, and right after the Levaya, Rav Shach ran back to Panovich because Medaflen. His Medaflen was totally empty. A half a minute later, a bacha, obviously also a masvid, came in and sat down to learn. And Rav Shach felt he deserves chizuk. I said, Asmoda. So he says, let me tell you something. The Chazon Ish, he given a delay from the door. He was the Aryeh door. Me lays a shach, I'm a kelev. But today, now, I am bigger than the Chazon Ish. You're wondering why? It's a pasuk in Keles. Ki toiv kelev hachai mi aryei hameis. Why? Why am I bigger than the Chazon Ish? Because the Chazon Ish is no longer able to learn Torah, and I am. That's living bi Ahavas Hatorah. That's living la'olam yachshiv adam b'shivcha shel Torah. That's living ma'oid tzarcha adam l'chabei b'as haTorah. To see through all the narishkeit and see what makes a person the greatness that he is, that he could become, because I could learn Torah. Now, on a Yom Tiv of simcha, man simchaseinu, it's appropriate to be mechazik in our ahava for Torah. And the only way to do it is the hav that brings the ahava. Hopefully we'll be zoicha taka to see the bracha of Ashrei Mi Shemoli B'Torah. Good Yom Tov to you all.
Gewaldig. We want to sit now and learn for hours and hours. As Ahavas Hatorah. The next year is in a few minutes. Shailis and Shuvas Dalchak Shachanach Barav Agon Abichil Mechel Steinmetz Skver Dain. Please make place. The Dan Agrisa Oila. Make place for the Elter Eden. Today, we want to thank Rabbi Smith for the wonderful shir. We'd like to also thank Rabbi Avram Spry from Manado and the Hantige Kiddush Hashem. Hashem should bench him and his family a whole year with simcha and gesund and nachas and panosse. Alle Yidden who geholfen werden mit aller Spurs Teufels. And one of the opportunities to show Ahavas Hatorah is to sponsor for Ignition Torah. Care about Torah of Klal Yisrael. Thousands of people participate in these shiurim worldwide. Listen to these shiurim. We have shiurim right now in Williamsburg, in Lakewood, in Monsey, and in Israel, many places. A gewaldige Zikar Rabben. If you would like to have the Sukkos of sponsoring a shir, please call Ignition Torah at 718-853-3950 or 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. A groß Yeshikar Rabbi Chaim Shem Rod Gush Bach Lazag Sol Vig Hebram Torah Mitzvos. Shalom Adon Chavas Matzitka Yagdol Torah V'Yadeh Kaddish.